Welcome to First Down Sports. Tonight's show is brought to you by Moose Light, Doyle's Corporate Image, and Done Right Sauce.
In case your kitchen sucks.
I'm your host, Ray Dunn.
How's it going, Ray?
Did you like the new opening?
I do. Perfect.
You like that?
Perfect.
Short, sweet, to the point.
That was my producer's call, Andy Jardine.
Yo.
He said no more talking about teams or...
It's like, let's Cole's notes it a little bit, maybe.
Cole's
Get to the point.
Yes.
Back on sound and audio after having a perfect show last week. Nick Dunn.
It was an okay show. I listened to it on the way up to Freddie today.
Yeah. Sound was okay?
Ray's mic was a little low.
A little low?
low.
There you go.
Just saying. Just saying.
Just saying.
Or maybe you're just tired.
What a fantastic weekend. There's so much. I mean, this could be a 2-hour show here tonight, Andy, but we got to find a way to wrap this up in 30 minutes or so.
Yep. Well, if we need to shave some time off anything, let's hammer this Vanier Cup thing out quick so we can get to the good one.
All right, let's go to Vanier. So I arrived in Ottawa Saturday morning, and I met up with the one and only Jim Fowler and his two boys. We met at a little pub in the Byron Market called the Senate. Mm-hmm. And joining us is a girl who officiates football in Quebec. She now lives in your old neck of the woods in Toronto, Lansdowne area.
Yep.
And she's now reffing football up there. Her name is Tracy Paluzzi, and her father, Ron Paluzzi, also joined us. Ron has been reffing football. I think he said 49 years he's been officiating football.
Jeez.
He's 1 year away from 50. This guy has reffed every level of football in the country. He has and still sits on the rule book committee. If there's a guy you want to sit down and watch a football game with, this is the guy.
All right.
We had the pleasure of watching the Vanier Cup. Not only was Western and Laval in the game, but we had a local guy in the game. Greg McLean was the head referee from Halifax, so he's an AUS official. Plus, there's two guys I've worked with before, a guy named Kyle Mikulik. I know I'm going to say that name wrong.
Let's go with McCulloch.
McCulloch?
Yeah.
There you go.
I haven't even seen the spelling, but I think that's probably what it is.
McCulloch, there you go.
McCulloch, yeah.
I just call him Big K. Big K.
Well, Big K is pretty cool. Yeah.
And then lastly, I worked with this guy at the Mitchell Bowl. Last name, his name is Ryan Stark. He was your field judge or side judge for the day. Mm. And I'm just going to release something out there to you guys. He is Iron Man. He is Iron Man. Yeah.
All
right. Okay. So we watched the game at the Senate, like I told you, and let's get into the game. So Andy, did you have a chance to catch the game?
I didn't get a chance to catch the game.
No?
Saturday was my home reno chores day, and I had to save up for all my football on Sunday. So tell me about this game. The only thing I know is that I may not have called it correctly.
Yeah, neither one of us. Western got on the board to kick off the game, and then they went for two and made it happen. They're up 8-0 very quickly. In the second half, Laval actually put some offense onto the board, getting a touchdown. But Western answered. By the end of the second half, it was 16-7. Yeah. And Western just kept rolling from there. In the third quarter, they came out and outscored them 9-3, and in the fourth quarter, they outscored them 14-7 for a lead of 39-17. They knocked off Laval.
Yeah.
Hugo Richard, the quarterback for Laval, he's in his second year of eligibility, so he's got lots of football ahead of him. But you know, we talked about Western, how powerful they are, in that quarterback. The quarterback for Western...
name escapes you?
Yeah,
I can't think of his name either.
It's coming here. Chris Merchant.
Right, Merchant.
Chris Merchant. He was unbelievable. Again, he threw for 276 yards and a touchdown. But, I mean, his whole support staff, Alex Taylor puts up 150 yards. His receivers had big days for him as well. The main one, Harry McMaster, 115 yards. We talked about those guys, too, on the show.
Yep.
You know, McMaster just came out and, they didn't blow Laval out, but they outscored them heavily.
Western,
sorry.
No, it's okay.
They beat Laval heavily. And it I guess the biggest thing that kept going through my mind as I watched this game is the whole talk about parity across the U Sports, and it was very interesting because Jim Fowler and Ron, all three of us, and Tracy too, we were all talking about it, and the talk of having an elite division, an elite status at one division. But the question is, how many teams would actually make that up? You might have Montreal Laval out of Quebec, Western, and a couple other teams like Wilfrid Laurier, maybe Guelph. Yeah. And then out west, you'd have UBC, Calgary, maybe Saskatchewan. But the cost of travel for these teams would be through the roof to have this elite division. How about we just go back to the fact that, hey, Western was a really good football team this year. Western put up a lot of points against its opposition, and actually stopped their opposition from scoring points. So I don't know if parity is a big issue across the board. Yeah, the AUS conferences have some ground to make up, but you know what? When you look at the conferences right across the board, there was no conference more exciting than the AUS this year.
Yeah, and I mean, you make up for this lack of parity. I mean, I'll say it for what it is. There is a lack of parity. I mean, yeah, Western is that dominant, and dominant's the word that you hear every time you hear Western, any talk of Western. But football makes up for that lack of parity with, the bowl games and just having the divisions, right? Yeah. So, the Loney Bowl is what an AUS team plays for, and it gives them the opportunity to go up, on the big stage. I think what a lot of people complain about when they talk about the parity issue is that, none of these games are really televised except the big ones, and then when you get to the end, they're not competitive.
Yeah.
Right? At least until the Vanier. The Vanier should be competitive, and I mean, that wasn't very competitive, but that was nothing like what you saw. What was it, UTEC, or the one with where Acadia faced off against Western? I mean, that for something like that to get televised, but the Loney Bowl not getting quite that level of being televised, I get it. So, but I mean, that's what divisions are for.
I'm going to just make this comment here. I think the biggest thing that U Sports, the biggest challenge U Sports has, is letting people know that this game is out there and it's taking place. When you looked at the stands for the Vanier Cup, it was dead. Yeah. It was dead. Now, I don't know if you remember this. A few years ago, they ran a promotion where they ran the Vanier Cup in the same city as the Grey Cup, and you got free tickets to the Vanier with your Grey Cup tickets. They need to go back to that because at least there was 30,000 people in the stands for those games.
Yeah.
It does not look good, the fact that Hamilton, for the second year in a row, can't put more than 5,000 people in the stands for a national championship game.
Yeah.
But forget about just football for a second. Even take hockey, and I'm going to go really local here. Moncton Wildcats versus the Blue Eagles at UDM. Moncton Wildcats, they have a good crowd at every single game. But at the end of the day, and don't forget, the Moncton Wildcats are moving into the new arena downtown. At the end of the day, what's better hockey, the Moncton Wildcats or the Moncton Blue Eagles?
Right.
The Blue Eagles, hands down, is better hockey. But what is the AUS doing to advertise its sport? Not much. Because if I didn't pay attention, and I do pay attention, you would see very little. I can't tell you where to go find out where the Blue Eagles play their next game. But within 2 clicks, I can tell you where the Wildcats do.
Yeah.
So U Sports has a challenge on its hand. It needs to find a way, just like our podcast, how to expand our reach. And I think that's the biggest problem facing U Sports right now.
And I don't think you can pin that on Hamilton, by the way. I mean, any city was going to have a hard time filling the stands for the Vanier Cup.
Oh,
they just were.
It's true.
And you're right. Like, they had that incidental 30,000 fans show up because the time it was in the same city as the Grey Cup. And really, did U Sports gain a lot that time? we don't know the financials behind it or why the decision was made not to do it anymore. But I agree with you. Like, it's fun to watch. It's fun to follow. I mean, there's, I was listening to another podcast that just said, like, the AUS, I'm pretty sure they're not even on TV, right? And like, these guys don't even know that. I mean, I can tell you where to stream any AUS game live.
Yeah.
I don't know for the other conferences. I'm sure they have streaming services available too, but the everybody just thinks that only the final 2 or 3 games of the season, the big bowl games or in the Vanier Cup or whatever, are televised. And
Right.
yeah, they just need to educate people on where to go look at it, and then they have to work out the financials, like how much they can market these things, how they want to profit.
Well, I could tell you the CEO of U Sports is going to get my feedback on that one. I'm going to send him a note.
All right.
Let's get into Grey Cup, because this is really what this weekend was all about. And I'll tell you, what a time I had in Ottawa. Best decision I ever made was to go to this game.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. Where do you want me to start with this?
You can start. Tell me about the team parties.
Okay, so on Saturday, we left our condo. We had a beautiful condo, literally minutes from the market, thanks to Airbnb. That was my first time using it. It was fantastic. We got on the great thing about what Ottawa did, which was so smart for the Grey Cup. Your Grey Cup tickets, if you had your Grey Cup ticket with you, all your bus transportation for the weekend, free.
Yep.
Okay, so you didn't have to worry about any transportation.
Awesome.
So we went down, we found the bus stop, showed our Grey Cup ticket on the bus. We're heading towards the stadium. We got to the stadium on Saturday, and it was packed. There was people all over the place. Near the stadium, there was 3 parties. There was what's called Our Nation Party, the Red Blocks Party, and then the Argos were a couple blocks over from that one. So the first place we went into was the Our Nation. And we get into Our Nation, and Andy, it was like I don't know what to call it. It looks like they must have had a old horse track there, because it was like an old barn like you would see at an old racetrack. Like, I think of the old Fort Erie racetrack, right? It was a big, long barn, and it almost looked like it could have been used as the team's indoor practice field. It's that big. Mm-hmm. And we walked into this place, and we're getting our bearings in as we go in, and you see every color shirt. Hamilton, Saskatchewan. I mean, and not just shirts, but these guys are fanatics. They're all dressed. I'll get more into this. And as we get in, all you hear is Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day by Kiss. And I'm like, Jeannie, let's get up a little bit closer. I want to see this. I'm a big Kiss guy. And they've got the big stage, and they got the 2 big screens up, to the right and left of the stage. And we get up close, and we're watching. I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, Jeannie, I think that's Doug Flutie on drums.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it's not. I said, no, I really do think it's Doug Flutie. And anyways, we get up closer, and sure enough, it's Doug Flutie on drums.
Yep.
It was the last...
Flutie Brothers...
the Flutie Brothers Band.
Yeah.
And it was the last song of the night. I mean, how's that for bad luck? We walk in, and Flutie's band is finishing up. So they say goodbye, thanks, whatever, and they leave off to the side of the stage. So Jeannie and I are walking around, and I see people kind of funneling back by the stage there. And we go back, and sure enough, there's Doug Flutie standing there taking pictures and signing autographs and the whole bit.
Yeah.
So Jeannie's like, we got to get pictures. So Jeannie sneaks out there, or gets right in front of him, and she can't get his attention. So Jeannie yells out, "You're gorgeous." And of course, Flutie comes right over, right? Jeannie gets in there. We get a couple pictures of her with him. And by the time I get up to talk to Flutie, they've got him whisked away. He's gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, people are just following him like crazy. He is by far, or was, we'll get to that, he was the GOAT of the CFL, no question.
Okay.
He's a rock star.
Rock star.
Drummer, but,
I thought he'd be a flutist.
A flutist.
Oh.
He's a drummer. So, later on, Jeannie and I, out behind this big barn or whatever you're going to call it, they were setting up for tomorrow's live events or the day of the game's live events. And they had a big tailgate party out behind this barn. So we take a walk back out there to see what that looks like. There's nobody out there except for the workers. And as we're walking back, and this is for you, Ian Hebblethwaite, you want to know about Doug Flutie in my picture. So as we're...
Ian made a comment, just so you know, Ian made a comment, I think, on Facebook of Ray's picture with Doug Flutie, wondering if Doug looked a little annoyed.
Yeah.
And then Ray's comment was, listen to the podcast. So I'm interested to hear what's going on here.
So we're walking right towards this guy coming at us in a hoodie. And he's walking with his wife, girlfriend, whatever. And they're walking right at us. And as they get a little bit closer, Jeannie's walking right beside him. I said, I think that's Flutie. And she's like, oh my God. And she friggin' nails him. Like, I mean, she hammers him like, it's you. Right?
Oh, wow.
And literally punches him in the arm. Right? And he stops and kind of laughs. But she's like, I just had my, she started doing her thing. And next thing you know, he's got his hood off. I'm getting my picture with him. And I'm telling him how much I loved him in Buffalo. And, what a raw deal not only he got, but us fans got. And that, Buffalo's still paying the price for the, the fact that, they traded him away. And, anyways, I was talking to him about his band, and I told him, I said, you got to get that band out to the East Coast. And he says, we'll see. I don't know if it's the right. I said, it's the right spot. You've got to get out east. Yeah. So hopefully one day Flutie comes out here. But it was so amazing to just have that 2-minute conversation with him and have my picture taken. I've loved Doug Flutie.
You cover, based on your description right there, you covered an awful lot of topics in 2 minutes.
We did.
You're not one to cover a lot of topics quickly.
I know. It was.
Well, he didn't sound too annoyed then.
No. He was laughing, but
so it was just Jeannie's punch.
He was shocked when Jeannie friggin' punched him.
Wow,
that's for sure.
All right.
Yeah, it was.
And then did
funny.
you get to any of the the teams host their own parties out here, and they were spread all over the place.
They were all over the city. After we left, as we were coming out of the Our Nation party, somebody told us, you have to get to the Atlantic Schooners party. It's the best event going on.
This is where I wanted to go next, because I want to talk about that news. So tell me about the party.
We never went to the Argos party. We got on it. We got on a cab and said, take us to the Schooners party.
They got on a cab.
We got in a cab.
Hammered at this point. Just holding on.
So we get to the Atlantic Schooners party, and we got there right at the right time. As soon as we got there, we were able to buy our tickets, and we were in.
Yeah.
Within 10 minutes, there was a line 50 people deep trying to get into this place, and it was shut down because of max capacity or whatever. Yeah. It was unbelievable. I put a video on my Instagram account. I'll put it on Facebook account. They had this band there called the Mudmen. And they've got 2 bagpipers, and they're playing rock and roll music with the bagpipes going. It was phenomenal. It was such a fun time.
Yeah.
And again, here's the thing I got to tell you about the CFL versus the NFL. I already told you about how every team was represented. And I mean, the Stampeders all had their cowboy hats. They had their cowboy boots. They had their fancy cowboy. And the Rough Riders, I mean, these guys are nuts, the Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans. Mm-hmm. I had never been to a football event like this, where people are drinking like crazy. You've got every team represented.
Even the team that doesn't exist.
Yeah. And there is not one incident in that party.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, no exchanges between people. You suck, this, whatever. It was everybody. And I asked the guy there about it. I was talking to a couple guys there, and one of the guys says, the thing about the Grey Cup, it is a celebration of Canadian football. These are Canadian football fans that love the Canadian game.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I talked to some when I lived in Toronto. We knew some people that were hardcore Argos fans, and this was when I was still skeptical of the CFL, right?
Yeah.
So, like anybody, pressed to come up with like questions about the game and everything. I had a bunch of them, but one of the ones I asked him was, I don't understand why I see so many jerseys. Like this was that year that they played the Grey Cup in Toronto when they were at the Rogers Centre. And I was just like, explain to me why I see so many jerseys of the teams that aren't playing in this game.
Yeah.
And I barely see jerseys for the teams that are. And that's what he said he loved about Canadian football so much. He's like, listen, every year the Grey Cup is just a big party that we're all going to. And everybody's accepted there. It's totally normal to show up you could have showed up in that Holmes jersey.
Yeah.
And look totally normal.
I would have fit right in.
Exactly. That doesn't happen in the NFL.
It doesn't happen.
No.
So now the day of the game, we get up early, we go, well, before even that, I got it after the Schooners party, we go back to the Byron Market in Ottawa. Now the Byron Market is a place where you go and they've got all kinds of shops to get, like hats, shirts, all these different things, but every kind of food you want is there. Mm-hmm. Bars, restaurants. It is amazing. The city of Moncton needs to sit down and look at what Ottawa has done as far as a layout for their city, and they need to replicate that a little bit. We need something like, rather than have our restaurants all over the place, to put it all in one spot like that. I mean, it's unbelievable how many people are down there.
Yeah.
And the vibe was just amazing. So the day of the game, we go for breakfast in the market, then we head down to the game. And again, it's amazing. I cannot talk. I want to talk about in the game for a second. In the NFL, I could not, like my kids are older now, but let's say in 5 years, Chris wanted to take his kids to an NFL game. You cannot take kids to a Buffalo Bills game.
Right.
Like take Missy and Albert. They could not, at their kids' ages, you never know what's going to happen in the crowd.
Oh, yeah. Especially I hear odd things happen in that Buffalo parking lot.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
Even if you're a parent that, you're not having drinks because you're with your kids, whatever, you cannot trust who's going to be around you in that section. There's just too many things that the NFL has to deal with fights in the crowd and, beers being spilled on each other. Like you just can't do it.
Yeah. I
was at the Grey Cup, and there was a lot of drinking before this game because it's a late start.
Yeah. And
it was a crowd that you would have no problem. In fact, we had a drink with a couple, and they're two young kids. They were probably 8, 9, 10 tops going to the game. You saw kids all over the place. It's such a family affair going into it. And I mean, yeah, there's security there, but they have less security than an NFL game. But there's less that they have to worry about because it's Canadian. I don't know if it's because it's all Canadians. I don't know what the answer is, Andy. All I could tell you is if you're a family and you're going to a football game, the CFL is a much better commodity for you than the NFL.
Yep.
They also had something there that the NFL doesn't have, though.
Which is?
Did you see the snipers on the roof?
Well, you know why?
Well, because Justin Trudeau was sitting in the broadcast booth.
No, he wasn't sitting in the broadcast. He was in the broadcast booth at one point.
Yeah,
he sat in the stands with the crowd.
Oh, there you go.
That's our prime minister.
Yeah,
him and his son sat in the stands with the crowd for the game.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And
that's amazing.
And before the game, like he was just in the broadcast area, sitting down, talking old Grey Cup stories and everything with Rod or you might have even been James. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And so he's completely exposed there, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I mean, it's interesting. You hear our prime minister. He goes to the final hip concert. He's all over the place. This guy, and I saw some, him taking some flack for being at the Grey Cup, but it is such a Canadian thing. And come on, people, it was in Ottawa. It was in Ottawa. It's not like he showed up in Edmonton, though he might. Yeah. I guess we'll find out next year.
It was awesome. It's his host cities. He's got to be there. But one of the funnest things about the Ottawa Red Black Stadium, It's a stadium that has two sets of stands similar to UDM here, right? You've got what's called the north and south.
Yep.
And for the Grey Cup, they put in staging seating on the two end zones.
End zones, yeah.
But they have this thing they do where we were sitting in the south side. So no, we were in the north side. So the whole time our section's yelling, "South side sucks." And the north side's yelling, "South side."
North side sucks. Yeah. All right.
So it was hilarious, the cheering going back and forth between the stadium. I loved it. Like, it was so fun. I had never been to a game. I can honestly tell you, out of all the games I've ever been to, I can't think of another game that I enjoyed as much as this game. And with it being the Canadian Grey Cup and the snow before the game, I mean, it was snowing hard. You couldn't even see across the field.
Oh, yeah.
It was snowing hard.
And it happened so quickly. I remember watching, I don't know, Nick, if you were tuned into some of the pregame stuff, but I was watching it going, all right, everything seems clear. And all of a sudden, it's snowing like crazy. So, all right, so we've got a lot of things to talk about. I want to get into the game. I want to get into the Halifax stuff. And I know you got a bunch of stories you don't want to forget to tell me.
Yeah.
So you want to go game first here? And then
let's go game.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you what a game this was. It was a fantastic game.
Yep.
And Calgary came out. They grabbed the first quarter was back and forth. There was a lot of punting a lot of positioning in the first quarter.
Yep.
Calgary grabbed that early lead, and shortly after that, then Ricky Ray threw a bomb to Posey there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the exact yardage was from the stands, but I think it was like 100-yard pass, and took that for a touchdown. They missed the extra point, so it was 8-6. And Calgary, they had momentum in this football game.
Absolutely. They played really well. I mean, if you look at Bo Levi Mitchell's line, 33 for 45, he completed 73% of his passes, threw for almost 400 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, he was great.
Oh, he was?
He was just great. And we'll get to how this game ended and so on, but they were really good. They were really dominant. Toronto in every aspect of the game, special teams, defense, and offense, did enough to win the game, and it took the whole package.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the weather in the field had a huge impact on the game.
Yeah.
From a footing standpoint
to
the ball coming out loose. The ball came out loose a lot in the first half.
Yep.
Calgary fumbled the ball, and I thought for sure Toronto was going to pick it up, and how he ended up coming up with the ball was unbelievable. And that's the same player that was Kamar Jordan.
Kamar Jordan,
the kid that fumbled it later. He had fumbled it earlier, but he recovered that fumble.
Yeah. Let's touch on this really quickly. Like, we don't have to make it a huge conversation, but I've seen a lot going back and forth, and that is the snow.
Yeah.
Some people hate it. Right? Some people say, oh, that's the Canadian game, right? And then some people can't stand it that you play the entire season, the very best teams make it, and then at the end, in the Grey Cup game, there's potential for the weather to completely derail things, and then potentially the best team isn't winning. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think the Grey Cup should be hosted somewhere with a roof? Or do you hope for the snow? Or is it somewhere in between?
I love it.
I listened to TSN 1200 on the drive home, and they were talking about the fact that the season should be bumped up. One of the guys was saying the season should be bumped up to avoid the weather in the final. I totally disagree. I loved it. I mean, going to it was my first Grey Cup, but going to a Canadian Grey Cup final, it doesn't get any bigger than that for Canada. And the fact that it's snowing, we're in Ottawa, the Prime Minister's in the stands. It was awesome.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Good.
I absolutely loved it. And I can tell you a couple Buffalo Bills games I've been at with snow.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, there's 500,000 snowballs going down on top of team officials or the opponents and stuff.
And nothing
there wasn't
like that happened.
anything like that at the Grey Cup.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you guys. I thought it was great. I think it's just luck of the draw. You take the conditions for what they are, and if it happens to snow for a Grey Cup, it happens to snow. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I definitely am on the side of the argument that says it does impact the game.
What?
Absolutely huge. And a team like Calgary, and they're showing their true colors now. They're 1-2 for Grey Cups with Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yeah.
And the one that they won was in a dome.
Yeah.
Right. So, but either way, I just wanted to touch on that. So let's keep going in the game.
If they want to have a warm weather place with no snow, they can put that game in Halifax in November. I can guarantee it's not going to snow. So there you go.
Perfect.
But we'll talk about Halifax
get
in a
there.
few seconds.
Yeah.
Did you see in the third quarter, with about 6 minutes left to go in the third quarter, there was a pass. Bo Levi Mitchell threw a pass down the sideline, and right around the 2-yard line, it was called incomplete.
Yep.
As I'm watching that play, it was right across the field from us. I was telling Jeannie, that's pass interference.
Yeah.
It's pass interference.
Mm-hmm.
And the Toronto Argonaut fans were arguing with me like crazy,
Yeah.
sitting around me. I said, look, guys, I'm telling you, this pass interference. He never turned back towards the ball. And then there was a TV commercial.
Yeah, and they challenged.
And during the TV commercial, you could see what happens is when you're watching it live there, during the TV commercial, not Rod Smith, the guy that called the game for Rod Black.
Yeah.
He's talking to the crowd during the TV commercials, and so the ref couldn't announce what he was doing because he couldn't get over top of Rod Black. So anyways, you saw the referee and the umpire stand together midfield, and I said, watch, this play's being challenged. And everybody's arguing with me. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's incomplete. And sure enough, we come back, and the referee says, play was reviewed, pass interference, first down Calgary at the 3-yard line.
Yep.
So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, and I remember that very vividly. And funny enough, I didn't think it was pass interference, but the color commentator, I can't remember who that was now, he said, oh yeah, classic pass interference. That's pass interference. Like, he was sure about it.
Yeah.
They go to commercial break, they come back, and you're right, and they called it back. And and then again, that's, we talked about challenges before and the fact that they only have one challenge.
Yeah.
They got that right.
Yeah.
If they need it, and that was worth using the challenge on, I guess, even though it was so early in the game. But anyway, yeah. So you were clearly right. So what did your surroundings say to you when that happened?
No, they just went on about how the refs suck.
I love how they can review that.
Yeah.
You can review anything in the CFL,
That was awesome.
but you can only challenge one time. In the game.
One time.
You heard our conversation about before that it kind of bought. Oh no, this was the podcast that never aired because I wanted to bring this up, but I don't like the challenges. Oh no, I think I talked to Ray Perkin about this, but regardless, if the referees are going to blow a call, and from time to time they do, they don't see, like, if they absolutely blow a call that even the color commentator and them are saying, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous, and the coach has to use his challenge just to get that right, I don't like that. So I do think in the CFL, you should only get one, but if you win your one challenge, there should be you should get one more, something like that. Anyways, let's not dwell on this one.
Well, so let's finish. We got to finish up this game because there's lots of stuff.
It was nonstop. It's crazy.
Here we go. So Calgary's rolling. They've got this game. They're up by 8 points. It's in the fourth quarter, and with about 4 minutes left to go, Mitchell throws a pass out to the slot, and he hits Kamar Jordan.
Yep.
And Jordan, they've got him. They've pretty well have him wrapped up, maybe 1 yard past the line of scrimmage. And rather than taking a knee and just calling it a play, he's trying for extra yards. Ball comes out.
Yeah.
And Andy, when the ball comes out, I jump up on my feet and I'm yelling fumble. And I'm hit. There's this guy sitting to my right. He is massive. He is some type of lumber lugging guy. He's a massive guy.
It's a lumber lugging guy.
I am pounding him, pounding him, yelling at, hitting him like it's, and as Toronto's running all the way down the sideline, I'm pounding this guy, I'm hitting Genie, and even the guy that ran it back for the touchdown, around the 10-yard line, he was out of gas.
He was gassed.
He was gassed.
Yeah.
But they get him for the touchdown. Ricky Ray does what Ricky Ray does and converts on the 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Now we got a tie ball game. Mm-hmm. Calgary gets the ball back. They go 3 and out. Ricky Ray marches them back downfield, kicks the field goal.
Yep.
We talked about Ricky Ray's veteran presence. We talked about this. And it was funny, Andy, as the last 4 minutes of this game was going, I'm like, Andy and I have called this game exactly the way it's going.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
We did a great job of previewing this game.
On across the line, they were asking us, and bottom line is Ricky Ray will always take what the defense gives him, no matter what.
No matter
what.
He
doesn't take points for granted, and that's all he did. He played it perfectly the whole game. He did have a 100-yard touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Like I was saying, the moment you take him for granted and those dink and dunks for granted, he will kill you long,
he will kill you.
which he did. And Bo Levi, on the other hand, just likes to take risks and doesn't take them at the best times. And that's what we saw.
So he comes down now, and what did you think of that pass that he made for the last play of the game? It was double coverage in the end zone from TV.
Yeah.
I was standing up watching it. I was going crazy at that point. But what did you think of the play? Like, do you think he should have thrown that ball on that particular play?
This is what he does. My answer is no, because I have hindsight now, right? But here's what I saw. So they were 2nd and 4, and they were already in field goal range.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's thinking, all right, we got one throwaway down here to take a shot. And, at the very least, we have to make sure that we can convert on the first down or something, which is what I thought they should have just ran like a drag or something, converted if they didn't kick the field goal. But he's thinking, all right, well, I'm going big here because I'm in field goal range.
Yeah.
So, if we could put this away with one throw, or we kick the field goal, we go to overtime. He threw it. When they say he threw into double coverage, I mean, you could tell there was safety help, but the safety just got there in time. And I think he might have been able to lead his guy a little bit more to the outside shoulder. It would have been a challenge, kind of 50-50 ball for the receiver to go get, and he trusted the guy. And it floated a little bit on the inside to him. Should he have thrown it? I understand why he did, but this is the knock on him. So if I am Bo Levi Mitchell, and that style of play is biting me 2 Grey Cups in a row now, and I'm going out a loser, what I think it is I'm only starting to understand the CFL game now myself. I'm starting to understand that you can always live to play another series.
Always.
And Ricky Ray knows that, right?
Especially in that 3-minute warning.
Yep. Ricky Ray knows that. He's been around forever, and he knows that, you know what, I have no problem punting with less than a minute left. We could get the ball back, whatever. Bo Levi Mitchell doesn't quite get that yet.
No.
He doesn't quite get that, but he will. And this will be a huge learning experience for him. I understand why he threw it. He was trying to throw a 50-50 ball to his guy. The safety just got there in time. He was thinking, worst case scenario, the ball falls to the ground. We kick the field goal. I felt bad for Bo. He was crying
on TSN 1200. One of the guys talked about he thought there was pass interference on that play. I didn't see any pass, but it was at the far end zone for me. But
they both played the ball. So the reason why there was no pass interference on the guy actually covering the receiver is he turned, he looked, he played the ball, and then in the process of them both trying to play the ball, they sort of got tangled up a little bit, and then the ball just kind of came down in front of them, and the safety swooped in and got a hold of it.
Wow.
And but yeah, I mean, what a finish!
I can tell you, the place went absolutely berserk. I saw Stampeders fans in tears. I saw there were all of a sudden there were 40,000 Argo fans there. I saw people in green and white cheering for the Argos. It really was amazing. Again, after the game, everybody's funneling out of the stadium. Not one push, not one shove. It was an unbelievable experience.
Yeah.
After the game, Jeannie and I stuck around like we always do. We worked our way down to the field. We were right on the field, and we were at the main entrance where the players came in at the beginning of the game. And there was 2 security girls there holding the door shut. As soon as James Duthie was done giving the Grey Cup to the Argos, the doors opened and out walked the national press. Now, here's the coolest thing about the CFL. The coolest thing. The CFL has a program for podcasters to be part of the national CFL press.
Yeah.
So you have guys walking out with their cell phones and a microphone in their hand with their podcasters going out with these national journalists like Damian Cox, like the guy from the Ottawa Sun that's on all the talk shows, and stuff like that. All these big national press guys that you would recognize no problem. They're within 5 feet from me, and then all of a sudden there would be like you and me walking out with our tripod and a microphone to record.
I'm sure some of the podcasts that we listen to, those guys were all there.
Absolutely.
Like the Eskimos Nation guys and Two and Out and those guys. So.
Two and Out was there.
And that's why they let those guys even set up at Media Row, like you said, on the Friday. So we've got a couple things we've got to do for our podcast is, we need to get on that program with them. Yeah.
And at next Grey Cup's in Edmonton. We need to, as a podcast, maybe we're going to Edmonton.
Huh?
But there's a couple other things we need to do before this podcast is over.
Yeah.
And that is the Atlantic Schooners. Let's go back to them. I just want to give you a little update on this. So there's a guy named John Ryerson. He is an Atlantic businessman. He's the one that actually started the name Atlantic Schooners and the push for the Atlantic Schooners back in the 80s. Yeah. And they were already given permission by the CFL then for a team, but it fell apart because they could never get the funding for the stadium.
Right.
They're getting the stadium this time. Randy Ambrose said that there's defining moments in every person's career. Now, just so you guys know, Randy Ambrose is the commissioner for the CFL. He says there's defining moments in every person's career, and it will be his defining moment that the Maritimes finally get a CFL team and make this a true Canadian team or league coast to coast.
Well, that's
I
what
was
you want to
jacked.
Hear. Yeah.
I was jacked hearing this.
Halifax, do not screw this up. And it's not Halifax, actually. These three business guys just make it happen. I'll make the announcement right now. We supported the Red Blacks this year, but as you saw, I started getting a little shine for some other teams and so on. I am officially waiting for the Atlantic Schooners, and they will have my full fanship. But going into next season, I'll decide after some player movements which team has my favorite players on it, and that's my team for that year, and we'll go year to year from that.
You'll go to year.
Now, I want to talk real quickly about what this could potentially mean.
Can I tell you about one other thing that the Schooners have done?
Yep.
They've hired a guy named Anthony LeBlanc. He's a local Maritime guy. Mm-hmm. This guy is the former president and CEO of the Arizona Coyotes. Okay. So he's got big league experience.
Yep.
They've brought in the perfect guy to sit down and work out contracts with the province, with the city, the municipalities. They have 5 locations they're looking at right now. They're leaning towards Dartmouth. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they're leaning towards Dartmouth is because it will be easier for the out-of-towners coming into the game versus having to get downtown Halifax with the bridges and the whole bit.
Yep.
So look for Dartmouth to be the spot. I'm not saying it's going to be the spot, but it's the favorable spot right now for this franchise.
All right. Well, I want to talk about, actually, Chris, do you want to come up for this conversation?
That's this one.
I want to talk about divisions. I just want your opinion on this. Come on up. So
we got my brother Chris is here from the NFL shows coming up to join us on the set.
Watch the plug there. Sorry about that.
Make sure his mic's on, Nick. I don't know if you got it off.
I mic checked it there. I think we're good.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, fellas.
Hello. So
I'll cover up my Buffalo Bills until we're ready to go.
Yeah, that's fine. Just let it fly. It's okay. So I wanted to know, your guys' thoughts on divisions in football. Do you think divisions are there because those games should be the most important games? You play, look at the NFL. You play your division opponents more than any other team,
right?
And those are the most important games. And at the end of the day, if you sweep your division, you got a great shot. Divisions barely matter right now in the CFL. They barely matter. Basically, There's an 18-game season, Chris. I don't know if you know the details, so I'll give them to you. There's an 18-game season, and there's 9 teams. There's 5 Western teams, 4 Eastern teams. Everybody plays every team in the entire league twice.
Right.
And then you play a random 2 teams in your own division for a third time. So those 2 games right there, those random 2 games that you play for a third time, are really the only reason divisions matter. And of course, like the winner, the top 2 seeds in the East are going to the playoffs. And then they've even diminished that a little more by having the crossover. Right. So if the 3rd team in the East has a worse record than like the 4th team in the West comes over.
Right.
So divisions still sort of matter. Now, you add Halifax, all of a sudden there's 5 and 5. And basically there's 2 options. Either everybody plays everybody twice, and then you got an 18 games, you're done, 18 games. Really rendering divisions completely useless. I mean, at the end of the day, the crossovers, I mean, it should just be one big pool if you're going to do everybody plays everybody twice. Or would you guys be more in favor of really upping the game on divisions, having everybody play and then you play once against everybody else, and then there would be 1 game left over where you would play potentially the team that finished in the same position as you did the previous year in the other conference to finalize that?
Way better.
You like that better?
I like that. I like that better too. I like that better too, and it would make the Grey Cup even that much more special, kind of like the NFC or AFC in the Super Bowl. So,
exactly, yeah. So I hope that's the way they go, because I really think if you're gonna have divisions, they really should matter. That's something I don't like about the CFL right now is we do have the divisions, and they only half matter. And But
I will tell you this about the CFL and the way they did things this year. Again. And we've talked about this about the CFL all year. A CFL game is never over until the last second is ticked.
Yeah.
And this year we had a 500 team take on a dominant team and beat them in the Grey Cup. And you just never know week to week who's going to win in the CFL.
I was going to mention that the West can continue to be dominant all they want. Some team coming out of the East at 500 is going to sneak in and win the Grey Cup. This is 2 years in a row that it's happened, right?
Yeah.
So, Chris, we asked this question last week, so I'll ask you this now.
Shoot.
I mean, obviously, we're all quite biased. We think if there's going to be a CFL team in the Maritimes, it should be here in Moncton.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes more sense.
Proximity to all of the larger places, draw more crowds or whatever. But it sounds like, if this is, my hopes are probably a little too high on this, but if this happens, and it sounds like it's really, there's a good chance it's going to be Halifax.
It's going to be Halifax.
They're not going to be branded Halifax, though. They're going to be branded the Maritime team or the Atlantic team, right?
Even more sense of why it should be Moncton.
So that team is playing on a random Wednesday night. Are you making the drive?
Yeah.
Good. It's good to hear.
No question.
We're getting season tickets.
Oh,
Well,
I am.
If the East Coast ever, like, that was always been the problem about, of why we selected, I think, anyways, of why we went to the NFL initially and why, CFL was like kind of second fiddle. Toronto was an hour away. Buffalo was 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
And that's
It's right across the border.
that's how it went. So if you have a CFL team in your backyard, essentially, of course you're gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2.5 hour drive from here. But
I was going to say this on the NFL show. I'll say it now.
okay.
And I think this is the best way to break down my Grey Cup experience. Jeannie said something in the car that was genius. But we talked about if there was a CFL franchise, if there was a franchise 1 hour away from where we lived, and the Buffalo Bills were 1 hour away from where we live, what team would you? And you can only support one.
Say that one more time.
If you lived in the middle, right in the middle of the Buffalo Bills and a CFL franchise
That were equal distance.
distances, what team would you? And you can only support one. What team would you support?
And sorry, I forgot Halifax or sorry, Hamilton. I would have at the time. I played. Just a Canadian version of football.
Yeah, you played the Canadian rules,
And-
so those were the ones you knew, right?
And a lot of the guys that were really good were going to the Ticats camps.
Right.
We would have definitely been Ticats.
Right.
Yeah.
So today, I'm talking today. If you look at that scenario where you had the Bills and a CFL team an hour apart, what team would you support? And Jeannie and I, we debated this in the car for a little bit. And I wanted, again, let's say the Buffalo Bills. Let's say you chose the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
How many let's say the Bills make, and I mean, I know New England fans, but let's say the Bills make 10 Super Bowls in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Or let's say they make 3 Super Bowls in our lifetime.
Well, we
now-
could
now
say
you're
4.
talking.
They've
All
done.
right.
They've met 4.
They've been to 4.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let's
But
go more.
let's say
Let's make it
later.
real.
Let's say.
Well, starting now.
But let's say as of now we got 3 Super Bowls, or you have a great CFL team that's going to go to 3 Grey Cups. As a Buffalo Bills fan, the odds of ever being able to afford or mortgaging your house to go to a Super Bowl, it's absolutely ridiculous. The great thing about the CFL is my ticket cost me $300. I had great seats for the Grey Cup, and the whole weekend, my wife were able to travel up there for $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the chance to be able to follow your team and the fans that we met. There was a guy that made a hat out of his Super Bowl or Grey Cup tickets. He's never missed a Grey Cup. Like these, it just blows my mind at the fact that you can follow your team all season, and if they go to the Grey Cup, we're going to the Grey Cup, and it's something you can afford to do.
And then the other crazy cultural thing about the CFL that we touched on, I think before you came down, is if your team doesn't make the Grey Cup, you're going to the Grey Cup.
You still go.
and you're wearing their jersey, and it's not weird, and you have a big party to go to, and it's just all one big celebration of the game as opposed to
That's
team
really
versus
cool.
team.
Yeah,
So
it was unbelievable experience. If you haven't been to one, put it on your bucket list. You got to get to one. I'm telling you, if you love football, you're gonna love Grey Cup weekend.
and
Next year.
it'll be one of the most realistic things on your bucket list. So put it on there.
Here.
How much was the
Get
tickets
it out of the
again?
way.
I got my tickets. My face value of my tickets were $415. I got them for $300.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Right.
Good friend of mine.
Now a trip out to Edmonton, little more expensive than going out to
Yeah.
Ottawa, but it's still not.
But next
that
year it's gonna be
big.
back on the East Coast.
Yeah.
right. Like it goes
Year
back
after.
and forth. So, who knows where it will be next year? Will it be Toronto or Montreal? In a few years, it will be in Halifax.
It will be, yeah. And anyways, just in terms of your little scenario there, for me, that would be very easy. I would not support the Bills, even if the CFL team was double the distance. No. But I get what you're saying.
All right, let me ask you this right now: if the Argos played the Browns tomorrow, who's winning that game?
Well, man, Ricky Ray's got a shot there. I'll tell you though, like the good thing about the CFL is you just have to figure out a way to get into it, which I have this season. And Chris, we're working on you. You just have to figure out a way to get into it. It very rarely conflicts with the NFL.
No, it doesn't.
You can do both.
You know, I spoke a little bit on Messenger at work. Or did we just? I think we weren't allowed to say that we weren't doing any type of. It was all work on Messenger. That's right. Right.
We were speaking at work.
Yes. You have to pick a team. Is the whole thing. If you're going to be a NASCAR, you got to pick a car.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go into a sport, you got to pick a team.
Right.
And to be passionate about the game,
Yeah.
that's what I decided. Is I got to pick something, and you know what? It'll be that much easier if Halifax or Moncton
Halifax
gets a team.
Yeah.
It's going to be that easy to be. Because look at we grew up like a lot of my friends. We grew up always talking about the CFL. We did.
Yeah.
And honestly, the NFL was secondary. Like until the novelty of the Buffalo Bills going to the playoffs. The first one, like I was a bandwagon fan. I hate to say it. I was a Bears fan.
Well,
first.
we were young, right? So
Yeah.
But I got this figured out, guys. I'll tell you, this is what we do. I have it figured out. We are Atlantic Schooners fans.
we are.
They don't exist yet, though. There is a party we can go to.
Really?
He went to the Atlantic Schooner party at the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
Completely filled.
It was
and there's no
packed.
actual
That's
team.
going to be the name. That's going to be the name.
Atlantic
Atlantic
Schooners.
Schooners,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's cool.
And
I
it's
like it.
And it's been a thing forever.
And you know what their team logo is? Still undefeated.
Still, yeah. So
They all had the Atlantic Schooner football
I like it.
jerseys.
I like it.
And the nameplates, all the nameplates on the jerseys said still
Still
undefeated.
undefeated or
It
something.
was awesome. I'm telling you, it was the funnest
That is
party. And
awesome.
Chris, if you saw the band, I talked about this earlier. If you saw the band with the bagpipers, they were again.
Yeah.
Guys, put it on your list. And the name of the band is the Mudmen. Check them out. They're unbelievable.
But anyway, Chris, this is how you do this. I mean, you can finish this up, but this is how you do it. This is how, and it may take you an extra year to get to where I am, right? But all you do is you follow the CFL, you get to know all the players, you watch all the games. There's not that many of them.
No, that's right.
There's not that many teams to figure out. There's trades, everything. You get to know the players that you like. For instance, you hear me talk about CJ Gable, who was with Hamilton, and he was one of the reasons why I started loving watching Hamilton. He got traded to the Eskimos, everything like that. You get to know the players. You are an Atlantic Schooner fan, and until they exist, there's so much movement and so many one-year contracts in the CFL. Have a look at a squad at the beginning of the year. Whichever squad has the players you like the most interesting players, potentially Johnny Manziel, that's your team for that year. You're just waiting for the Schooners.
Well, I think I've given this advice to some people that want to start watching the NFL. Let's for instance, they said, "So how do I even begin?" And my advice always is join a fantasy league. So I think what I'll do this next year to get to really know the players and know the type of production, fantasy is the best way to go.
Yeah,
you're going to go into a CFL fantasy.
It works. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here. This show's run a lot longer than we expected, but we knew it would. It's Grey Cup week.
Let's see the time.
So, a couple of things that we are going to be doing from a Canadian football perspective. We have a huge event coming up. The Moncton Mustangs have their Hall of Fame event coming up on Saturday.
Yep.
We were going to be present. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to happen this time, but we are going to talk to the 5 nominees. We're going to have a quick 5-minute conversation with them. That will be out this week. So you'll get to hear from those guys. One of the guys is in the CFL today, Mike Miller.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Plays for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So we're going to talk to Mike and the rest of the guys. And then on Saturday, after their event, and they've 3 of the 5 are going to make it into the Hall of Fame, we will break down the whole experience with them individually and have a conversation with them as well.
And in case you're wondering, Chris, unfortunately, no, Justin Savoie is not one of the others.
What? Savoie's not there.
You guys got problems.
Like we're pretty sure he's going to be first ballot once he's eligible. Yeah. We're just not really sure when that is or how that works.
You know what? I'm going back to the Mustangs. I'm going to tell you guys want us to cover your Hall of Fame. We want Savoie on the ballot.
Yeah.
Put him on the ballot.
Put him in a nose tackle.
Special teams
running
captain.
game.
And if you guys don't do it, you guys got problems.
Big problems.
He's the solution. He's got solutions. All right, so let's get out of here, guys. Again, let's thank our sponsors: Moose Light, Done Right Sauce, Doyle's Corporate Image. I'm just going to sign off with this. I told you to put the Grey Cup on your bucket list. One other thing I need to tell you. Put the city of Ottawa on your bucket list, okay? If you want to go and have a great vacation, you get to walk around the Parliament buildings. Here's another thing about our Parliament buildings. You get to walk up to the doorsteps of the Parliament buildings. There's no big chain. I was at the White House years ago when I was in Washington with AOL, and you can't get anywhere near the building.
Yeah.
You can walk up to the front steps of our Parliament building.
Justin!
It was amazing. It's just amazing. Between the market, the city, it's fantastic.
Who is it?
Get Ottawa on your bucket list. You guys are going to love it. That's all I have for you this week. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we sign out?
I'm ready to go.
We loved you, CFL. Other than the Mustangs, this is our last Canadian football show, but we will be talking Canadian football going forward. And in fact... we've got a big talk on our podcast future as far as how our coverage is going to go.
For sure.
Because of our interest in the CFL this year. That's all we have for you. Have a great week. And don't forget, you can find us at iTunes, iPod, or Podbean. And check out our YouTube channel for all the fine work that Andy does. Have a great night.
She's all lit up. just aside. She's up and gone again. It's not a boyfriend. They're not the kissing kind. They're just some friends of mine.